Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for November 1st to November 7th of 2015. On November 1st, we have the sun. You can see it denoted right here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Scorpio. It's also in the 44th hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we have the chop mark for the 44. Numbered from bottom to top, the 44 goes yin, yang, 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 yang. And then the 44th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 44th gate of alertness. Coming to meet the success of any interaction is based on the absence of any preconditions. Located in the splenic center, in a tribal energy path in the ego circuit called the Channel of Surrender, a design of the transmitter that connects to the 26th gate of the egoist, the taming power of the great, the maximization of power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on November 1st. We have the sun in the 44th gate. We have the earth in the 24th gate. The north node is in the 46th gate. The south node is in the 25th gate. Mercury is in the 50th gate. Venus is in the 47th gate. Mars is in the 6th gate. Jupiter is in the 64th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 51st gate. Neptune is retrograde in the 37th gate. Pluto is in the 38th gate, and I forgot to say Saturn is in the 34th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. And no matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And we begin the week with two channel definitions due to the transit field. With the south node in the 25 and Uranus in the 51, we've got the channel of initiation, a design and needing to be first until November 29th, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on the unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum leap, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see this people being more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside their comfort zones, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. And I've been seeing this being played out in the media, in political events, and events across the globe. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time period, just remember it's a conditioning force that will eventually move on. But of course, it's taking 4.5 months before it moves on. But this could seem like folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. With the defined ego center, this could influence folks without a defined heart center, that they may feel as if they have something to prove or want to improve themselves or make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. The defined G center could influence those without to obsess about where they're headed, what's their direction in life, where will they find love, things like that could be their influence. It's also individual circuitry, so that means it brings melancholy or blue feelings that are best used in some type of creative activity. And then we've got Jupiter in the 64 and Venus in the 47, giving us the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity, until November 1st. This is the energy of this channel is about creating something new out of something old. It's about abstract thought being brought into the collective through collective consciousness through the arts, philosophy, history, and culture. This is wonderful energy for telling stories about our experiences, that inspire others, but it brings confusion when used to resolve our own issues. The defined head center could influence those without to have pressure to think about things that don't matter. And then the defined ajna center could influence folks without to be certain of something when they truly are not. We're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when talking about these daily shifts in line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Of course, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So November 1st begins with the sun in the first line of the 44. And the sun in the 44-1 is conditions, the establishment of a framework as a result of interaction. Exalted, a mastery of the collective that can establish restricted conditions for inferior components with the ability to enforce them. An alertness to patterns that can lead to the mastery of the collective. Detrimented, an attractive nature that will interact with inferior forces but fail to apply restrictions, resulting in the risk to continued harmony, the failure of the instinct out of the need for harmony. And when we're in the lower trigram, first, second, third lines, this is a time period where folks are more absorbed in their own process, with the first line themes being a fear or an anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it's a day to study, not to act, a day to look into things, not to jump, a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or simply don't know. But then later on, the first, the sun then moves into the second line of the 44, and this happens at 2:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've changed from daylight time to standard time here in the United States. So just make note of that. So 2:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 44-2 is described as management, exalted, the development and management of a proper collective structure which restricts inferior elements by creating cooperative modes that integrates these forces with progressive and superior forces. The possibility that alertness to patterns will result in management capability. Detrimented, a tendency in management to concentrate exclusively on goals, ignoring inferior elements, which leads inevitably to a qualitative success and qualitative failure. The instinctive memory for patterns that bypasses the development of management capability. And second line days, in the line of the hermit, everybody's waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called because of natural talents. People are stuck in their own trip in that lower trigram, so it's not a great day to have a party or a big social event, because under that influence of the second line hermit, people would rather stay home. Also on the first, Venus moves from the 47 Jupiter back here. Venus moves from the 47. It joins Mars in the 6th gate in hexagram. So in human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood, according to Ra. It brings morality and values, natural law in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us, and what disturbs you on a moral level. Your design and personality, Venuses, tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with in life. And if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. In the 6th, Venus is in the gate of friction. Conflict, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. And Venus is in the first line of the 6th hexagram, and this is retreat, the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage but folly. Exalted, the power of regeneration that can embrace retreat as a phase and not a failure. The emotional stability to accept conflict. Detrimented, the inferiority complex, where retreat is experienced as personal weakness, emotional instability in times of conflict. And then on the second, the sun then moves into the third line. So it leaves the hermit line, moves into the martyr line of the 44 at 1:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's an hour and 15 minutes after midnight on the second. The sun in the martyr line, third line of the 44, is interference, the failure to interact based on circumstances. Exalted, the ability to recognize the threat of interference and to prepare for its effect. The alertness and instinct to handle the egos of others. Detrimented, a diluted response to interference that gets stuck in projection and as a result is unrealistic in appraisal and error prone. The possibility that instinct cannot handle the ego of others. And third line days, line of the martyr, we're talking about trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us under that third line energy, so be careful on the roads, be careful of things in your environment, whether it's somebody's elbows or swinging door or something like that. It's a day where we might have bonds made and broken, or we might feel like we're going through a trial and error process. It's a good material day. It's a good day to work on the material plane and do business. But of course, you have to be careful because things can go wrong. But ultimately, there's the potential for those things to lead to discovery. And then later on the second, the sun then moves into the fourth line of the 44. Where it is detrimented, and that shift happens at 11:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 44 is described as honesty, the refusal to engage in hypocritical inaction. Detrimented, the sun in detriment, that in extreme situations, in cases of self-fulfillment, will expect assistance from the forces it has totally rejected. Here, the honesty, honesty is a genuine need. The sacrifice of indifference for survival. And fourth line days, we're moving out of the lower trigram into the upper trigram, moving from a personal process to transpersonal, moving from looking inward to now having more of an outward perspective with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking. Fourth line days are great for social interaction. And then also on the second, Jupiter moves, and it moves out of the 64 and down to the 47. Let's get the Earth back up here in the 24. And so in human design, Jupiter is generalized law and the electromagnetic central operating theater in which the solar system operates. And living by your law can bring great good fortune. Activations in your human design chart tell about the law that you must live by. To benefit from the generosity comes only from deep obedience to honoring your own law. Your strategy and authority. Jupiter in the 47th gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. Jupiter in the first line of the 47 is taking stock, exalted the ability in times of hardship to concentrating on eradicating negative factors that have led to oppression, realizing that negative thoughts have to be eradicated. Detrimented, the delusion of seeing oppression as an exclusively external phenomena with disastrous results, the sense that the world is against you. On the third, the sun then moves into the fifth line. So leaving the opportunist line into the heretical fifth line of the 44 at 10:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 44-5 is described as manipulation, exalted the ability to transform interaction with inferior elements into energizing progressive progress with the additional benefit that in tapping the inferior elements, they remain weak. Where the instinctive recognition of patterns leads to the possible manipulation of others, detrimenting a tendency in this form of manipulation to become abusive and degenerate to their level. The possibility that the instinctive recognition of patterns could lead to the abuse of others. And fifth line days, the heretic. To me, the most important thing to understand about the fifth line is projection. And the projection always goes positive, then negative. Positive, they could do it. They're the perfect person for it. That's the person to get this thing done, whatever it is. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, doesn't want to do it, for whatever reason, they're not meeting that expectation, that's when that person gets punished. That's when the heretic gets tied to the stake. So the influence of it is this is a day of suspicion, but also of universalization, where something can spread like a virus. We talk about suspicion, paranoia associated with the fifth line day, which can impact the nature of relationships. But, as I've said before, if they are projecting on you and you are not meeting their expectation, and then they are out to get you, that isn't paranoia, is it? Seduction also being a fifth line theme. Also on the 3rd, we've got Mercury moving from the 50 to the 28, which connects up with Pluto in the 38, bringing us the channel of struggle. So let's see. Mercury, in mythology, the messenger of the gods. So this is communication and expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music, according to Ra. What do we need to communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated with Mercury in the 28? Well, what are we willing to risk to fulfill our purpose? Are we afraid of death? This is the gate of the game player, preponderance of the great, the transitoriness of power and influence. And Mercury in the first line of the 28 is preparation, exalted the desire to be effective, manifested in the application of energy to detail, the intuition to potentially apply energy to detail, detrimented the aesthetic appreciation of planning that may have no real application, and intuition for detail without potential for application. And then with Mercury in the 28 and Pluto in the 38, we've got the channel of struggle, which will be affecting us until the 6th. This brings experiences where people struggle against overwhelming odds. It is through this archetypal hero's journey of fighting for our purpose that empowers others to stubbornly fight for what holds meaning for them. This is about empowerment that comes from being who we're meant to be instead of following the conditioning of our families, schools, religions, and governments. People with this definition are said to be deaf. They don't really hear the other and become distracted from their authentic purpose. For those without the defined root center, this transit definition can bring pressure. It may have folks hurrying to get things done to release their stress. The defined splenic center brings intuition and well-being. Ra warned that non-splenic people may let go of something that is good for them during a transit defining the splenic center. This is also, again, individual circuitry, which brings that melancholy or blue feelings that we should be using for creativity. It's fuel for that type of activity. Then on the 6th, then on the 4th, the sun moves into the 6th line of the 44th hexagram at 8:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 44.6 is aloofness, exalted, a perfected renewal in which the establishment of a new form inures one to the condemnation of the rejected. the awareness of patterns which ensures one's instinctive well-being, detrimented intolerance and ignorance of lesser morals, the awareness of patterns which can bolster the ego at the expense of the well-being of others. 6-line days, we're up here, we're on the roof of the hexagram. When I think about being on the roof of a building, we don't tend to look at the building we're standing on. We're looking at what's in the neighborhood, what's down the road, what's on the horizon, things of that nature. Ross said, 6-line days, not to get stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your kneecaps or your shins. It's a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around you because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like 3rd-line days, there can be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming, things like that. On the 5th, the sun then moves from the 44 and into the 1. And the Earth moves from the 24 and it moves to the 2. What we got here? So 24. All right, so Earth in the 2nd hexagram, this is the gate of higher knowing, the receptivity as a primal base through which any response is determined. The root of action. This shift happens at 7:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we've got the sun in the 1st gate of which is self-expression, the creation as a primal force, the energy potential to manifest inspiration without limitation. And in the 1st line, the investigative line of the 1, this is creation is independent of will. Exalted, time is everything. Self-expression, which has its special timing. Detrimented instability leads to distortion. Here, patience is a virtue and revolution a vice. Creative instability unless there is patience. And again, now we're in a new hexagram and gate. So we're back to the lower trigram, 1st, 2nd, 3rd lines, which again is more inward in perspective, and with the 1st line themes of and fear and anxiety that wants to be investigated. So it's a day to do research, investigation, looking into things, things of that nature. On the 6th, the sun then moves into the 2nd line. So it leaves the investigative line, moves into the hermit line of the 1st hexagram at 5:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 2nd line of the 1st hexagram is love is light, exalted, the required harmony between established values and ideals that enriches inspiration, self-expression conditioned by ideals and values, detrimented desires and passions that have their place but not at the expense of creation, self-expression limited by desires and passions. In 2nd line days, as we talked about before, people are waiting to be called for their natural talents. The hermit, again, we would rather stay home than go out and socialize. Also on the 6th, we have Mercury moving from the 28, and it's moving into the 44. And and also we have Venus leaving the 6th hexagram where Mars is and moving into the 46th hexagram where the North Node is. So Mercury, again, we talked about being the messenger of the gods and communication and things like that. What might be communicated when Mercury is in the 44? Well, do we fear the past? Are we afraid of extinction? Is that there is not enough resources to continue the genetics? This is the gate of alertness coming to meet. The success of any interaction is based on the absence of any preconditions. Mercury in the first line of the 44 is conditions, the establishment of a framework as a result of interaction, exalted a mastery of the collective that can establish restrictive conditions for inferior components and with the ability to enforce them. The alertness to patterns that can lead to mastery of the collective. Detrimented and attractive nature that will interact with inferior forces and will fail to apply restrictions, resulting in the risk to continued harmony, the failure of the instinct out of the need for harmony. And then Venus moving out of the 6th, leaving Mars into the 46, joining the North Node. We talked about Venus being about values and being about morals and things of that nature. In the 46, Venus is in the gate of the determination of the self, pushing upwards. Good fortune that may be received as a result of serendipity, but really derives from effort and dedication. In the first line of the 46, this is being discovered, dedication in obscurity that is unexpectedly discovered, exalted art for art's sake. Any creative endeavor that is self-fulfilling sooner or later is recognized. The potential for creative success through dedication, detrimented the ability to judge the potential of those in obscurity, but often solely to benefit one's own success. The determination to recognize and benefit from the success of others. So, and then on the 7th, we've got the Sun moving out of the Hermit line into the Martyr line of the first hexagram at 3:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sun in the first line, in the third line of the first hexagram, is the energy to sustain creative work, exalted the profound need for self-expression, the deep need for self-expression, detrimented material forces that can disrupt creativity and lead to over-ambition. Materialism disrupts creativity. Again, third line days, the Martyr, we're talking trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. So no matter what those energies are that are conditioning you during the week, just remember this experience is about being a passenger, riding in a vehicle that's being driven by the magnetic monopole. Enjoy the scenery, let the vehicle take you where you need to go. Through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what the dramas that beckon to distract us. I believe we're all here giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. Just take some time to observe your play, to watch your movie, as well as acting your part, by remembering that you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for November 8th of 2015. Should be available on the 7th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, and YouTube. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or text as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you've got any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. If you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And as I've said before, you can email me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you want to make a donation or, get a reading. The readings I give tend to be quite lengthy. They're priced reasonably. There's 3 different options. In the first option, I'll look at your human design chart, and we'll talk about that. And who are you in your movie? Who are you in your play? And then at the upper 2 levels, I look at your astrology transits. So you get really like 2 readings in one. And I use the astrology transits to talk about, what is this character going through? What's happening in their movie? What are the things that are going on? What's the next scenes, next acts that are coming up for you? As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. Anyway, much gratitude and look forward to connecting with you in the future.